Washington. I'm the STEM Center Coordinator at Moreno Valley College, and I'm really excited to have Mario Gomez back here with us today. Mario is an alumni from MVC. He was here from 2015 to 2017 before he transferred to UC Irvine and graduated from UC Irvine in 2020 with a degree in computer science. He currently works as a software engineer for Google, specifically for support.google.com. Mario's family currently lives still in Moreno Valley, but he lives in Irvine with his girlfriend, Clara. For fun, Mario likes to visit theme parks around Southern California. I'd love to hear some of your favorite ones, Mario. He likes to try new restaurants and food, enjoys puzzles, video games, bowling, and building mechanical keyboards. So welcome back, Mario. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So should I share my screen now?
Yes, please.
Okay, awesome. Let's see here. So
it's at the bottom, there's like a green arrow that says share screen. And then from there, you should be able to choose a screen to share.
Okay, there it is. Okay, because I was worried because the window was like my inbox and I don't want to share that, but
of course.
Cool.
Yeah, I see your slide deck.
Cool. All right. So thanks to everyone who came. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my path from attending MVC to working at Google. I have some like contact info here that you can reach out to me if you want after the meeting, or you can even ask a question during the meeting, whatever you're comfortable with. But yeah, let me just jump into this. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this, but
I can see it. Looks good.
Okay, awesome. So before college, obviously I was in high school. It was an overall okay experience socially. I was really focused in high school academically. I tried to do the best that I could on classwork. I took the SAT a couple of times. I took the ACT once, and I didn't do like particularly great on either of them, I think, in my opinion. I did study for them, but I didn't take the study super seriously. I really tried on 4 of the AP tests that I took. I studied a lot for my AP calculus one, and that was the only one I passed, barely. I played tennis for all 4 years of high school, and I tried out for other sports, but they didn't really work out. So I decided to attend MVC mostly out of like financial circumstances. I realized kind of late in the game when I was starting to attend UCI that I probably wouldn't have enough financial aid. So I backed out of admission a little bit after like the freshman orientation. And I was kind of broken up about it for a little while, but after a couple of weeks, I decided to like research what alternatives I had. I even like considered asking to be readmitted into UCI, but I ended up just deciding to go to community college. So later that fall, I ended up starting at MVC. Okay, so I met a lot of awesome people at MVC, particularly classmates. Later in my time at MVC that I happen to be really good friends with. Unfortunately, I kind of lost touch with them throughout the years. But definitely like one of the first classmates that comes to mind is this guy named Jose Flores. He was in my calculus class, and he happened to be TA for my physics class with Dr. B. I'm not sure if he still teaches there, but yeah, Dr. B was really cool.
He does, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. But yeah, Jose is probably like up there with one of the smartest people I've ever met. He really like changed the way that I thought about math and physics and really a lot of stuff. And he really advocated that like, even though we probably won't be doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing in class in the real world, the paths in our brain like are still there, and I think very useful in that way. Another classmate that I had that had a big influence on me, his name is Steven Jimenez. Again, he's up there as like one of the smartest people that I've met, and he was a really great person to study with and saved my ass a lot of times on classwork. But yeah, like I met him at one of my classes in Norco. So MVC was like my home college at the time. So I'd be commuting like around like rush hour time, like 5 to 6 to, I think it was like an assembly language class in Orco. And I met him in that class. And like a lot of the time I would go to that class, I'd be super tired just from the commute. I remember a couple times, and I don't want to like promote this, but I fell asleep a couple of times like on the drive from MVC to Norco. So I would say definitely like drink coffee if you have to. But yeah, that's just a little anecdote. But a lot of these times I'd be going to class, I'd be super foggy from the commute, and he would really like help me out after class if there's anything I didn't understand, which a lot of the time there was stuff that I did not understand at all. But he had a really strong and like contagious work ethic. And I was really like fascinated by the way he understood everything after hearing it just like once. Some other influences I had were all of the awesome people at DSS, Joe, Melody, Laura. They were all really awesome people to work with and really good friends. My time at DSS, it was like the first time I had worked in an office environment. I learned a lot about like accessibility and accessibility software. I got the chance to do like some basic graphic design. I forgot which software I used exactly, but that kind of like led to me being able to get some like opportunities in communications and marketing that I didn't really consider when I was learning it. But yeah, working at DSS was a really great experience. And I feel like all of the professors that I had left a really big impact on me as well. Dr. B, just to mention one, Dr. Lair too, he was like the first professor, or not the first professor that I took, but like one of the big professors that I took that really like challenged me academically. But yeah, so yeah, and something that really stuck out to me taking some of their classes was that they were a lot more difficult than some of the classes that I took after transferring. Okay, so some special programs that I signed up for. I applied to EOPS as soon as I could. I guess it's like EOPS/CARE now. I'm not sure if the name changed. Yeah, they provided a lot of help in paying for textbooks, and then priority registration was super helpful too. I kind of knew like early on that I wanted to go to UCI for sure, and like the priority registration and the planning really helped me get on track to transfer, because I think if I had like registered at like the time I was supposed to register for class, I might not have been able to take a class that I needed to take at like a specific semester. And I feel like that really gave me a huge advantage in like the transfer process. Yeah, so another program that I signed up for was the peer leader program. And I signed up for that like my first summer at MVC. Yeah, I mean, it was a really fun time. There's a lot of cool people that I met through that. And if it's still available, I highly encourage you to apply. Okay, so I applied. So I don't know. I wouldn't encourage everyone to do what I did. But I didn't take like the application process super seriously when I was in community college. Just again, because like I knew where I wanted to go, and I kind of had a feeling that you know, like I was accepted once, so I would get accepted again, especially with the existence of tag. And from what I know, I think tag is still around. So again, I encourage you to do that if you can. But yeah, I only applied to 4 UCs. I think it was 4 because you get 4 free ones. But yeah, I applied to San Diego, Santa Barbara, Riverside, and Irvine. And yeah, the reason it says tag kinda is because I think as soon as I could start tag, I started it, and I was filling out like all of the fields gradually throughout up until the deadline. And then the day of the deadline, I was like talking on the phone with someone, and I fell asleep, and I missed it. So my tag was like fully filled out, ready to be submitted, and I just didn't submit it past the deadline. So set alarms, do whatever you can, just don't do what I did. for sure. Yeah, so let's see here. Okay, so I decided on UCI again early on, since high school. I had known that I was going to go to UCI, or I at least wanted to go to UCI, and I just stuck with that decision throughout my time at MVC and taking other classes at RCC and Norco College. I wanted to go to UCI because it was close enough to home where I could visit home if I wanted to. It's not as close as UCR as I wanted it to be. Or I'm sorry, it's not as close to home as UCR is. It's like about 30 or 40 minutes further away. Not as far as San Diego or Santa Barbara, that's super far. And I had just heard good things about the computer science program. I try to remember if there's like anything in particular that stuck out that really made me want to go. And I'm sure there was a handful of like articles or I don't know, like posts on CapEx or whatever the current like social education platform is. But I couldn't find like any evidence of it. But yeah, that's basically why I chose UCI. Okay, so the transition from community college to university, the change in from semester to quarter system really took me by surprise. It's really just like the pace and the structure of classes and lectures and that sort of thing. I mean, not that like the semester system is easier, but it's just a lot different, and you need to like structure your day differently to match the amount of like things you learn in a quarter, because you learn the same amount of things in a quarter as you do in a semester. It's just condensed. But another thing that caught me by surprise is the number of students in a lecture. So I think like the largest lecture I had at MVC was around like 50 people or something like that. And the largest one I had at UCI was like over 400. And like this, the number of students in that lecture probably didn't sustain throughout the quarter. Like people drop, things happen. So like the number would go down. But I remember like one of the first classes I took at UCI, there were like over 10 people, probably like closer to 20 people that were in the class that had to sit in the back because there's no seat for them, or they just be standing up in the aisles, stuff like that. It was pretty crazy. Another thing is like the size of the school. I don't know if like UCI is like one of the biggest UCs. It really feels like it when you're walking from class to class though. I guess like a side note, something I really like about UCI's campus is like it's like a big circle. So if you get lost, you can just go straight for a long time and you'll probably end up in the same place. And also another thing I liked about the campus is like a lot of the stuff is named after like Lord of the Rings stuff. But yeah, that's just like a little sidebar. The hills too at UCI is something that I didn't expect. I didn't build like any like noticeable calf muscle, but like going up those hills, like going up and down those hills, it's a workout for sure. You hear a lot about like freshman 15, but I probably lost like 20 pounds my first year at UCI just from all the walking I had to do. Yeah. So another thing about my transition was my student job. That I keep on going back to. I realize now I'm going back to like a lot of the exercise stuff and like walking, but it was kind of far from campus, and walking like it was down the hill too from UCI. So walking down the hill and up the hill after work was kind of rough. But yeah. So another thing about the transition was like the culture shock. Going from, I mean, not just like community college to university, but Riverside to Orange County. It was like the difference in diversity. So like Moreno Valley and like Irvine are both very diverse in their own right, but it's just like the shift in diversity was kind of like it was hard to get used to, but it was really awesome to meet like all different sorts of people and learn all of their different perspectives and stuff like that. Yeah, another thing too, like I really want to let everyone know is to keep in mind the summer of your first year after transferring and plan for it as much as you can, because so my first year I had a lease on an apartment that went from September of my first year to September of the next year. So that's 12 months. But the academic year is only 9 or like 8 months or something like that. And I didn't plan to take classes my summer quarter. So that meant that I didn't get any financial aid for that quarter, which meant that I had to find a way to make my student job like stretch the money I made from that for the rent in Irvine, which is, I mean, it's insane everywhere, but it's really insane in Irvine. So I had to find like I applied to like so many just like random odd jobs, and yeah, I ended up working at Ralph's in the bakery, and I feel kind of bad about that. I mean, not because I had to work at Ralph's, but they really like made it to where they wanted you to know that you should only work there if you're in there for the long haul. And I straight up told them like, yeah, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm gonna be working here as long as I can. And I only worked there for like 2 months. I didn't learn like a lot of stuff I actually needed to know to work in the bakery and the time that I was there. So that kind of shows you like how long I was there, or I should say how little I was there. But yeah, so I had no financial aid in the summer. I had to figure out how to cover rent and all my bills and stuff because it was a full year. I didn't have enough time to find a sublet, which is when you like find someone to lease your lease to, so they cover the rent while you're not staying there. But I also didn't have a place to stay if I did that. So yeah, just be ready for those summers if you have a 1-year lease your first year. Okay, so I did not get any internships or research experience. Something I want to say right now, like from the jump, I didn't know like when I started community college that I needed an internship to get a full-time job. And then that mental model of like how things work sort of stuck in my head to where I was like, I need an internship so I can get a job. And then it turned into, if I don't have an internship, I'm not going to get a job after I graduate UCI. And it just kind of led to like a pit of like doom and despair where I would apply to internships and I wouldn't get a response. And then like that fear and anxiety would kind of compound every time I applied to an internship or research experience or anything like that. And I applied to a lot of research positions and internships and only received I received one response for an internship, and it was a phone screen. I didn't go any further than that. And then I got a response for a research position. And I could share the question that they asked me that I think kind of knocked me out. But I don't know if anyone, I'll share it at the end if anyone's interested. But yeah, unfortunately, none of them worked out, and I graduated with no internship or research experience. I did have the experience from a student job that I think I'll talk about in like a couple of slides. But yeah, don't do what I did and like have that stuck in your head where you think like if you don't get an internship, you're not going to get a job, or if you don't get research, you're not going to get a job after you graduate. That's not really the case. Like experience is the most important thing. And you can't, I mean, and a personal project or a group project is not like exactly the same as an internship or research experience, but like it takes up the same space in a resume, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the job search, it was kind of tough. I'm not gonna lie. I finished taking classes fall of 2020. I could have swore I wrote this in the slide, but anyways. So yeah, I had a tough time finding a full-time position as a software engineer after I graduated. I applied to like well, I applied to more than 232 jobs, but I have 232 jobs accounted for and tracked in like my spreadsheet for the job search. Um, I think I I this I'm just going off memory here, but I think like 8 of those applications went to the interview process. I don't remember like how far each one went, but I know 2 of them went to the final round, and one of them it ended up in me being here. One of them was an offer from Google. Um, so a big thing about the job search for me, I mean, I'm kind of like an anxious person in general. I kind of have like a little bit of social anxiety, and I kind of have a hard time like introducing myself to new people. So like every every time I would get an interview and I would fail, like my anxiety for the next interview would compound, meaning like I was equally as anxious for every following interview times 2. So that's something I never really figured out how to get over, but just know like that's definitely like a real thing if you're socially anxious. I kind of like talk about ways to prepare for interviews and stuff that might help, because I don't think there's any like supplement for preparation, like preparation. I think I said that wrong, but yeah, anyways, so yeah, every failed interview made me more nervous and perform worse on the next interview. And then also, so I was working at my student job, but like full time. And I didn't know that the way that I got my full-time position was through like a contract that they worked out with the school. So I was technically like a union employee slash contract worker. And then I found out like halfway through the year, like June of 2020, or like, no, like May or like late April, something like that, that my job had like an expiration date based on like the number of hours that I had worked. And like knowing that my job had an expiration date and I had nothing lined up after it really like freaked me out, and it made the anxiety that much worse. But after like 8-ish months of like applying to jobs, uh, I say 8 because I started a little bit before I finished taking classes in the fall. So like around June, well, it was actually the day of my girlfriend's birthday. I remember we went to like BJ's or something like that. And I just checked my email randomly, and I saw like I had like a missed call or like a message or something. And then later on I got a call and they told me I got an offer from Google. Okay, so yeah. So the way I prepared for a lot of my interviews, well, yeah, pretty much all the technical parts of my interviews was by doing leak code problems. I kind of realized like I made this deck based off of like what I did and like some stuff that I know is gonna help. So I didn't do all of this, but yeah, doing leak code problems daily helped prepare for the technical part of the interviews. I think on the last slide I talk about like the method that you do to do those problems, that you probably should do, not like it's the definitive way, but everyone learns differently. So it's like one way that I think helps a lot of people. Another thing to prepare that you can do is like learning about the company by going to their website. Usually they have like an about or about us section, and you just learn about like the company's values, their mission statement. And that really helps with phone screens, because a lot of companies really like to ask you like, why do you want to work here? Like, how do your values align with ours? So it really helps with that. Just learn about like the company's product or like service, and that also really helps with the behavioral part of phone screens. Another thing you can do is watching mock interviews on YouTube. um I mean, I can't remember watching any like real interviews. A lot of it is like sort of staged, or it's like people practicing. I know there's this platform called like Interview.io. I'm not sure if it still exists, but it definitely did exist at one point, where you can get matched with like an employee of like a tech company or whatever company, like Airbnb, Google, Uber, stuff like that. And they would basically like ask you questions that they would ask the candidates at their company. So watching those videos on YouTube really helped. Just like familiarizing me with the process and know like what to expect once I got there. I know I kind of said like the whole anxiety compounding thing with every interview, but again, like something that really helped me with like future interviews was like knowing the process and actually doing the technical interviews. So doing the interviews with this company helped me know like what to expect again, and like sort of helped with the nervousness of meeting new people. So my experience so far, so that student job that I was talking about was at a department at UCI called UC Path. UC Path is like this like timekeeping HR system that's supposed to be like one system for all UCs in the UC system. I said UC a lot, but anyways, like every UC had a UC Path department, and I worked at the one at UCI. I was a communications assistant there as a student. It was my first full-time job out of college after I stopped taking classes, and I finished school again in like the fall of 2020. But I officially graduated 2021, if that makes sense. So I started out doing basic graphic design at UC Path using this website called Canva. Then eventually I got into like email marketing using a website called MailChimp. And with that, I did like a lot of like email template building, segmenting like email subscribers into like different audiences, stuff like that. Another thing I did was, I think probably what helped me, I think, in the job search a little bit was maintaining like the department website using this thing called a content management system called Cascade. And basically a content management system is like a way for people that aren't really like familiar with coding to build websites. You probably know like some of them as like Squarespace, but content management system is a little different than that. It's similar in a lot of ways, but a little different. But yeah, so I made a lot of page updates with that, just based on news, pictures, basic stuff. And then I learned through that, I learned basic stuff about web accessibility, which I think really helped me later on in my career. So through that, I was able to like start learning a little bit of basic web development using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And like one of the first things I did was build a custom countdown clock. And then I think like the second thing I did was making like these custom buttons. So you can see it on this picture. This is one of the custom buttons I made. If you go to like ucpath.uci.edu and you hover over those big buttons in the picture, there's like a funny looking sliding animation that goes behind the button. Yeah, I mean, I don't stand by it as like the best user interface that I've ever made, but it's like one of the first things I did. Yeah, so anyways, after that, like I started getting into like more advanced stuff with the content management system, development wise. Towards the end of my time at UC Path, I got the opportunity to help build out like some of the stuff that people use the people who use the content management system, the things that they would use to build web pages. So I got to work with like I think it was like, I forgot his title. I remember his name, but his title is like strategic communications director, something like that. But he was a really good web developer. His name was Todd McGill. I got to work with him and do that. So yeah, in order to do that, I had to learn this language called Velocity. Well, that's kind of boring, but anyway, so the culture at UC Path was pretty cool. I met some very interesting people, and sadly, like a lot of them were contractors, so they would leave after like a year, or like sometimes even less time. But everyone was super nice and super supportive. A thing I really liked about working there is like I had a good work-life balance. They really respected the fact that I was a student, and they didn't really like step over their boundaries and ask me to work outside of like my shift. Or I mean, there wasn't ever emergencies period, I think, at the department for anyone, even like the developers, but There's no emergencies that I had to get asked to respond to, even though it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a bad work-life balance to have that, but yeah, there wasn't really any of that. It was overall a really good experience. So the way I got my current job was that I was contacted by a recruiter on LinkedIn. They just reached out and asked if like I had 10 minutes to chat or something like that. Um, I was like surprised by the fact that someone from Google was contacting me on LinkedIn after like I've applied to like hundreds of companies and I haven't gotten anything. So I thought it was like spam or like it was an accident or something like that. Then I told my girlfriend Clara about it jokingly because I thought someone made a mistake and I thought it was kind of funny. But she encouraged me to meet with him anyways and like respond even if it was like a fluke or something like that. I can like talk to him and like let him know my experience and what I know. So I ended up talking to him in like February 2022, or not 2022, 2020 over the phone. And he told me about like a couple of possible opportunities that I'd be good for. And I ended up picking one of them. I actually tried to pick both, but he really discouraged me from uh, going into the hiring process for two different positions, which I'm really thankful for because it was stressful enough as it is just doing one. But after our talk, he said, okay, like that sounds good. We're gonna schedule you for a phone screen in a couple weeks, and then those couple weeks flew by, and I ended up doing the phone screen. So now that I work here, day in my life is not really super structured. I don't have like a set schedule. Like I used to have like at UC Path, I had like daily stand-up meetings where we would talk about what we do. I don't really have that anymore. I had, like what's taking place is like team meetings where we kind of share what we want. But for the most part, like no one's like hovering over you or like asking for status on a project or anything like that. So yeah, I don't have too much of a set routine for better or for worse. Working on getting better at time management because I'm still really bad at it. Yeah, so my day is kind of like structured around the meetings that I do have. I usually have like a couple each day. These can be like one-on-ones with teammates, where you talk about like the projects that you're working on together. Then there's like the team meetings that I mentioned earlier, which are usually like about projects that people are working on, like any questions that they might have for the team about the projects, that sort of thing. And then another thing that kind of like takes up a lot of time for me, I think, just because I'm kind of new at it, is like interviewing. Um, at Google, we have like like serious like training process for interviewing. So you have to like go through all of these courses and like learn all of these like types of biases so that you avoid bias like during the interview process, which I think is really cool. But yeah, like we have like a pool of questions that we have to select from, and I think I've kind of like narrowed down the set of questions that I ask for. But we also like during the interview we have to write feedback or evidence, like just basically documenting what happened in the interview, and that kind of takes time. I usually like go back and add stuff that I didn't get to add because like I was talking to the candidate. But yeah, after that, like you have to write like your feedback on the candidate using that evidence, and you have to like justify it against like a rubric of criteria. I don't know if I can mention it here, but yeah, there's like a rubric that we have to like stick to when we write feedback, and that usually takes like about an hour. So that kind of takes a while of my day. But yeah, okay, I kind of talked about interviewing a lot, but anyways, like the actual work that I do day to day, like a lot of the work tasks are centered on projects that I get assigned. So you get a lot of autonomy, at least in my experience, in the way like project work is done. You get to like come up with the designs for your projects. You have to create documents for those designs. They're called design docs. You share them with the team, and then you share it like onto the greater organization. There's like an entire like process for launching a feature that like starts with that, and then the actual work that you do, like the coding, that sort of stuff, it's based on the design that you wrote. So you kind of like create the design, break it down into like small tasks, create those tasks as bugs in the system we have called Buganizer. At least that's the way that I do it. And then you kind of go from there and tackle each of the bugs for your feature as you go, as you can. And you try to do as much as you can, like as soon as you can, and sort of like parallelize all the work. So like, for example, on the feature that I'm working on right now, I started with the design, and then like the next day I started writing a little bit of code, what I knew was gonna stick throughout the design. And then I started like the launch process, which is this system called Arion. So that's like 3 different tests that you have going at once. I'm not great with my time management, so I didn't do great with like doing work on each of those things for the project, but that's sort of like the main stuff that you focus on. Like the main day-to-day work is like your projects and your features. Outside of projects, we have bugs assigned to us, or bugs that like we pick up from the pile of the team. These are like small, easy to fix issues. Like most of the time, they're not really related to our main project work that we do. It'll be like accessibility issues or like little weird things with the user interface that we need to fix. Sometimes it'll be like, this doesn't look good on mobile, so can you fix this? Stuff like that. Okay, so outside of bugs and like main feature work, we have these things called community contributions that we do, which is like work that doesn't really benefit the team, is not focused on like the main work that you do. It's stuff for like other teams or like other organizations within Google, stuff like that. So like an example of a community contribution that I did recently is this program called Busy Beavers, which is basically like this thing that like teams set up where they know they have like a lot of like repetitive work that it doesn't really require a lot of context on like the product or service for that team. So they'll basically advertise like, hey, we got this like huge pile of work that doesn't need like a whole lot of like context switching. You can do this and like earn a community contribution that way. So that's sort of what I did. Like to be specific, my Busy Beaver work is focused on like, with this. So at Google, we have like a serious like testing philosophy where everything that all the code that you write has to be tested multiple ways. So like what Google Maps has been around for a really long time. So their unit tests are super old. Hopefully I didn't offend anyone, but anyways, they're kind of old, and my task for the Busy Beaver project was to like take some of those tests and use like a new testing framework. So that's an example of like a Busy Beaver contribution. But yeah, like some other things you can do are like updating like team documentation for like spelling errors, things that are like obsolete or aren't really true anymore. Then there's like mentoring. I tried to be a mentor through this program called Code Next. It's mainly for high school students in New York and Oakland, and it was going to be like a remote mentorship, but it didn't end up working out, sadly. Okay, so besides that, thankfully, my work-life balance is pretty good. I think burnout is a real threat to like a sustainable career trajectory, mental health, and those 2 things kind of go like hand in hand. But because of my work-life balance, I haven't gotten there yet. Fingers crossed, and hopefully I don't get there. But just know that's a real thing. So try to avoid that when you can. So since I've joined Google in October of 2020, I've been fully remote. There were a handful of times where there were dates that they announced that like everyone would be returning to the office. Those ended up getting pushed back because of like every like single wave of COVID that we got. But yeah, so today is like my first official day and like what they call the transition to hybrid, or TTH for short, which is where I work from home on Monday and Friday, and then I work in the office from Tuesday through Thursday. And so far, it's been pretty good. Um, and luckily, my commute is not that it's not bad at all. Yeah, I live 3 miles away from the office, and it's on the same street I live on. So I could I don't know. I can like skate to work. I can scooter to work. I can unicycle to work. It's really close. It's yeah. Um, so advice. Um, apply to as many like internships, jobs, research as possible. Just sign up for like any experience you can get. And this applies like not only to the job search, but like internship search. Yeah, so also be ambitious, and like when you're applying, don't worry about requirements for a job too much. Usually like those requirements are made by like a human resources person talking to a hiring manager for a team or company. And like the manager usually tells them like the ideal perfect person, and then that gets communicated through the job description, which I think probably like 99% of the time that person doesn't exist. So you should apply if a position says it requires 3 to 5 years of experience, or yeah, just apply anyway. Um, I think like the worst thing that'll happen is that you get rejected instantly by like a resume filter, and then the best case scenario is you have a job. So yeah. Another thing is to be flexible. If you're able to, and I know it's like kind of tough to do this, but just like apply to positions all over the country. This is going to exponentially increase your odds of getting a response on a job application. Um, at first, like in not even in my internship, I didn't apply to anywhere other than like Orange County for internships. But for my job search, I kind of expanded it to LA County and Orange County. After a few months of no responses, just applying to those two counties, I expanded my search to the Bay Area, and I received responses from like 3 different companies and a university, like all in the span of like 2 weeks after applying up there. So another piece of advice is looking for red flags when you're in the hiring process slash application process. The quote that I like to refer to is like, believe them when they tell you who they are the first time. You can kind of pick up a lot from the initial vibe in an interview or the hiring process itself. You can tell a lot just by like the person's tone, their like behavior, their word choice. You can kind of tell what working for them would be like just through that stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot of phrases and terminology that are red flags that you can look for that would indicate a bad office culture. The questions that they ask you are really important as well. This one time I was interviewing for a defense contractor, and like the first response I got from them was like, we want to interview you, give us your transcripts. And I thought like, I was like, okay, this is probably fine because it's like a defense contractor. I've never interviewed with one. This is probably how it goes. It's probably like a little stricter because it's like military stuff, you know? So in the interview, he asked me like, he targeted like a particular quarter in my transcripts, and he asked me why my grades were so bad this quarter. And I feel like that's like the best personal example of like a red flag question during an interview. I guess luckily enough, it's not that bad, but he kind of like interrogated me about why my grades are so bad. He was like, why didn't you do your homework? Why didn't you do better on this test? And yeah, I kind of like checked out after that for that interview. And I haven't been asked this question, but when you get asked if like you're comfortable working on weekends or like working outside of business hours, that could be a red flag, could be a yellow flag depending on like what the position is. Or I mean, really, it could mean nothing. Like if you're a site reliability engineer, you have to be working like all the time. So yeah, it might be like a little risky to base a career decision off of like these few things during hiring process, but I would just say like trust your gut and like kind of know like what indicates a bad work culture / work-life balance, and then just make the decision from there whether you think it's worth it or not. Another thing is like not to compare yourself to others. So the imbalance in knowledge between you and your peers, it it definitely like it's going to exist no matter what you do. um some people just like they start earlier than others in everything, so like they'll have an advantage over you in anything you participate in, like especially computer science or coding. I've met people that have been like they've been writing code since they were in kindergarten, and I'm not sure, like I don't remember exactly like when you learn multiplication, but I have to assume like these people were learning how to code before they knew how to multiply. So that kind of gives you like an indication of like how far people start in anything. And I didn't learn how to code really until my second year at community college, and even then, like I was just starting to learn, so I wasn't really good at it. Um, but yeah, I would say like focus on your on work ethic and learning to enjoy the process of learning, and just remember that like people are gonna have a head start on you no matter what, so it's not really worth comparing yourself to others. Uh, Another tip is personal and non-academic projects. I can't stress like how important it is to do personal projects and non-academic stuff. If you're curious about CS as a career, I recommend you just try it, like just dip your toes in a little bit, like watch some videos on YouTube about software engineering, like what it's like to work as a software engineer. Try like a simple like coding exercise. There's this website called like W3 Schools that has like basic like introductions to literally like any like type of language that you want to learn, any type of like form of like web development. You can learn it through this website, and you get like a little playground and stuff where you can write code yourself and sort of like copy what they do, but it's really good experience. um if you really want like a good foundation in what you're learning, and because you're interested in it more through those things, you can read about like what a programming language actually is, like online through a textbook. You can even like go as far as like learning about computer components and like how the CPU communicates with like the other components of a computer, stuff like that. You don't have to, but like I guess if you get that interested, you can. So I didn't really know like if I like computer science that much until after I transferred to UCI. I found out that I really liked it when I did my first full stack web application with one of my good buddies from UCI. And I feel like that's kind of late in the game to like know you like something after like dedicating a couple years to it. But yeah, I found out I really enjoyed it through that, and I guess it's like partially my fault for not really like trying to learn everything you can do with computer science, and really like what it means to like be studying like the broad field of computer science itself. But yeah, like once you're started and you decided like this career is something you want to pursue, you can try to do something larger, like a more independent project, or you can do it with like a buddy over the weekend. I've seen people like create like Netflix clones or Twitter clones, and I know it sounds like insane, but there's videos that literally walk you step by step through how to do this, and I haven't really done it myself. I've watched a couple of those videos, and they break it down really well. I wish I could remember like the name of the YouTube channel that did that, but yeah, YouTube's a really good resource. Yeah, so sometimes it's hard to like stand out amongst your peers, and at least like in the internship process, I feel like it's probably a little bit harder just because everyone's sort of like, I think most people are sort of like on the same playing field, and that they don't have like previous internship experience, or they don't have previous like personal projects. I feel like if you go into like the transfer process with these things, you have a huge advantage over like other internship applicants. um I see we have like 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna try and get through as fast as I can. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, so a personal project or a team project can put you right over the line between having your resume filtered out by like a CTS system and getting a call back. Another tip is like learn as much as you can while staying interested. So like learning how to manage your time, or like manage your learning process to where you're maximizing how much you can do in a day and like still be interested in it. Because in reality, like I think people's will is like strong enough to where you can get out of work at 5 and then like do leak code problems, like work on a personal project until 11 p.m. But the next day you're not going to want to do the same thing. And the point is like to like build a sustainable learning process, which I guess I'm guilty of, like not really forming one, but that's something that like if you can do, it's super helpful. So I guess like to learn stuff, you can join a hackathon, like find a group of people that you click with and like figure out what something you want to build. I didn't participate in a hackathon personally. I volunteered for one after I finished taking classes, but it was a really cool process to see and be a part of in some capacity. And I really wish I would have done it when I was going to UCI. But yeah, another thing you can do is take LinkedIn courses, Udemy courses, Udacity courses. There's a bunch of like online course platforms that have a bunch of free stuff that you can do, like learning about Java, C++, learning about TypeScript, JavaScript, and they're usually like formulated around like a particular project or task. Like this, I did this one. I think it was a Udemy course on using Node.js and Express to build like an API for like a bootcamp search website. That's an example of something. Yeah, so I another thing you should do is keeping track as much as you can of like everything you're learning, everything you're doing. So make sure you take note of your achievements and what you know in your resume. Note what you learned, what you did, how you did it in your resume. Make sure it's visible online. So put the code for your projects on GitHub if it's possible. Create a personal portfolio. You don't have to do this, but it's really nice to have. It really puts you ahead of like other candidates in like the hiring pool. But creating like a personal portfolio from scratch, or you can even use like a website builder, as long as you have something like a place where you can put your work and it's accessible by people who are like looking for candidates. I think that's the key. So the process itself of creating a portfolio from scratch is like notable enough to put on your resume. So you should do that if you decide to do that. Create a LinkedIn account if you don't already have one, and put everything you've done on that. Katie added me on LinkedIn a while back. So I suggest like if you're watching this, you should create a LinkedIn, put like basic information about yourself and add me too. Keep track of your job applications in a spreadsheet. What you can do is like on one column, you can put the company name. Next one, you put the position. Next column, you put the date you applied, or like the date since the last interaction. Every single time you apply, if you need to like update your resume to fit what that position is looking for. If you have the experience to match it, obviously don't lie on your resume, because they're gonna find out. And I'm not saying that because I know that, but like I've heard that they know, and they could find out pretty easily. But every time you apply to a position, update the tracker with the responses that you get from each company. What I did was like I color coded each row. Like red was I got rejected, blue was I got a response for like an interview or something, and then green I think what meant that I applied, which is kind of confusing. I feel like green should mean that you got the job, but at that point there's no need to keep track of your positions that you applied for because you already got a job. But yeah, prepare for your interviews. I mentioned LeetCode earlier as a way to prepare for interviews. Something that I kind of like started doing towards the end was doing problems that were marked as easy. I made sure like not to take too long on a particular problem if I got stuck. And then if I did get stuck and I took too long, I would look at the answer, figure out how it works, what the algorithm or data structure used for the problem is, and why it works. That's like, I think, the most important thing. Because if you can know the answer to a problem and not really understand why the answer works, and I think that's like the most important thing from doing LeetCode, besides being able to like answer the problem in a timely manner, communicate like your thought process while you're doing this, and just basically like proving that you know what the problem that you're being asked is, because that's the biggest thing is like when hiring is like you look at the competency of candidate, and you know look at the position that they're applying for, and see like if there's a difference there, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, don't get discouraged if after practicing for a couple of months you can't successfully answer medium questions. I think it took me like 4 months or like 3 months or something like that to be able to like answer a medium question within like 45 minutes, which is like the time frame of an interview. Leak code is a use it or lose it skill. I don't think I can answer a medium question right now if you were to give me it under time pressure. There's a post somewhere somewhere on GitHub. You can probably find it if you Google hard enough, but it's called like the 13 patterns or something. And it basically is like, it's like a thesis that like every single problem on there falls under like these 13 patterns. And if you learn these patterns, you can answer pretty much most problems, most coding problems at least. Another good resource is the Cracking the Coding Interview textbook, or I don't know if it's a textbook or like a handbook. It's a book that's worth the purchase, in my opinion. You can just reference it throughout the entire, you don't have to read it like front to back. It's more like a textbook. You just reference it when you need help on the hiring process. There's several coding problems in there that will help prepare you for interviews, and they walk you through the solution so that you understand it. Another piece of advice is like to meet people in your time at community college, talk to classmates about work. If you haven't, just drag up a conversation with them, see if you can form a study group with them, share what you learned with the people in the study group. And that's a really good way to reinforce your knowledge, what you already know. I had mentioned this earlier, but add as many people on LinkedIn as possible and reach out to them and see if they'd be open to chat virtually. Or in person too. I guess like things are kind of opening up and people are more like amenable to meeting in person these days, I think. And then when you transfer to a four-year university, just do all that stuff with the students at your transfer university. Go to career fairs. I think like a big advantage that universities have over community colleges is like the resources, and like the career fairs is one of those big ones. I think there's like 2 per year at UCI. One in the winter and then like one in the late spring or something like that. And I forgot which one that most tech companies go to, but there's one that most tech companies go to. And before you go to those career fairs, figure out what companies that you're interested in that are going to be there, learn about them, prepare an elevator pitch, and just go talk to them if you can. It can be like, it can be sort of daunting to like go up to random people and give them a pitch. But several people that I know that went to UCI received internships or full-time offers that way. So I definitely recommend it. And then my last tip is to enjoy college. I think like the biggest thing I want to push is to like enjoy your time, even though it might be tough right now. And it can seem impossible at times to balance like all of your responsibilities, family, work, schoolwork, etc. Just know like this is something, higher education is really valuable, and I think we're fortunate enough in this state and country to be able to have community college as an option. There's a lot to be learned from classes and from people attending. And even though it's like sort of a cliche, it's going to be over before you know it. Yeah, so it's about all I have for today. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them here, or you can email me or add me on LinkedIn even and message me through there.
Mario, wow. Thank you so much. Such thorough information about, how you were successful in school, how you got to Google, lots of information about interviewing. I think y'all got a crash course right now on how you can get yourself into a software engineering job. So if it's okay with you, I know it's 6 o'clock, but if there are any questions, you feel free to unmute yourself or post it in the chat.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Go for it.
So for Mario, what exactly was tag again? How do you use that for your university transfers, and what are the qualifications?
So before you answer that, just so you know, I did drop the link to the tag website on the UC process in the chat. So I'll post it again in case you didn't get it. But it is a transfer admission guarantee. It's a process that you have to follow, that you can make an agreement with a certain university if you meet certain requirements and apply by a certain time to get guaranteed admission to a program. This is all going to be different. Mario's experience is going to be a little different going to UCI than someone interested in going to UCR, UCSB, etc. They all have different requirements. But Mario, please go ahead and speak on your experience as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like you summarized tag pretty well. But I guess like my experience with it was like introducing me as this way to like just a surefire way to get into like one of the UCs if you met like all of the qualifications. Like again through like EOPS and just like the counseling office at MVC, they really helped me like prepare for the transfer process. So I think that helped a lot with tag, just knowing which classes I need to take which semester. And then another big resource that I didn't mention was let's see. I can't see if I'm definitely not muted. Okay. I was worried that I was talking right now. Nobody could hear me.
I can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, no. It's my fault. But yeah, so what's it called? Change.org is a really cool, useful tool to know like which classes at your community college transfer to which classes in the university that you're interested in transferring to. So that's something that really helped in the transfer process, and like with the tag application. But again, like I didn't actually submit my tag application. I filled it out all the way up until the end, and I think it would have been approved or whatever had I submitted it, but I fell asleep during the deadline and I didn't get submitted.
That's such a bummer. But anyone else interested in tag, please make sure you meet with your community college counselor. Ms. Trejo at Moreno Valley College is really great and very knowledgeable on tag. She can walk you through the process and the requirements. In the chat, Mario, I see Joash is asking for your LinkedIn. We can get you that link. But Sanelli is asking, does the interview processes require you to code in a certain amount of time and then also explain your code?
Yes, to both questions. So like usually you'll get asked, hopefully, I mean, depending on the company that you apply to, it's usually like always different. Like your first go at it is a technical phone screen where you'll get asked kind of like a simple data structures or like algorithmic question. Like an example of one of the questions that I ask for technical phone screens is to like in your coding language of preference, convert a list or an array into a hash map or dictionary, whatever paradigm you're comfortable with. And that's, I think, pretty straightforward of a question. That's an example of like a technical phone screen question. And usually you have like 45 minutes to answer that. And you do have to like kind of like walk through your thought process. It's really good to do, I don't know if you're familiar with what pseudocode is, but it looks like it's basically like comments and code, just like walking through each step of your algorithm. Yeah, so like besides like the technical phone screen, the next thing after that is like an on-site interview, which is a little bit more of you get asked more difficult questions. Usually like one problem takes like the entire span of the interview, and like if you do solve it, you'll get asked like a follow-up question on that problem, sort of like tweaking it to make the solution a little bit more complicated. Another thing too, during the interview, like if usually like I think the most effective thing to do is to like explain your thought process for like the simplest solution. Like it's the most naive approach, and it's usually like not really time efficient or space efficient, but just do that, like explain your thought process, write the pseudocode if you really need to. Usually like if it's simple enough, you can just jump right into the code. Yeah, and then for like those harder ones, I mean, you could really do like the same approach for like the on-site interviews. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything about like the technical part of interviews. There's still like the behavioral part, which I don't think I'm really the best at. But there's a lot of resources out there. I think there's something called like the STAR principle that's pushed by Amazon. Uh, I forgot what it stands for, but you can look that up after the talk right now or during if you're interested enough. And I think that's something that really helps with like the behavioral part of interviews. Usually that's like the first time you get contacted by a company.
Wonderful, thank you. What other questions do you all have? And
I had,
Mario, I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
I posted your link for your LinkedIn into the chat.
Yeah, of course.
I had another question.
Go for it.
So again, for Mario, this one kind of goes back to your college life, not necessarily a career like directed one. So like kind of how you did work out in college. So how did you balance the rigor of your classes in college with your progress in computer science? So like if you were doing club activities or projects or whatever for CS, how did you balance that with the rest of your academics?
That's a really good question. So, in community college, I'm guilty of not really having many personal projects. I didn't really participate in clubs. I think I signed up for like the Spanish club, and I didn't go. I'm sorry, for those of you who were in the Spanish club. I don't know if they would probably be in this call, but anyways, like I didn't really do a good job of doing that in community college. And then when I went to UCI, I struggled with that, honestly. It's easier said than done to like balance everything you're learning in class with like the valuable skills that you need to learn to be like a desirable candidate when you're applying to a job. Usually like the two things are different, and just because you're taking like a full course load in your computer science program, it doesn't mean you're gonna translate exactly to like the best candidate for a software engineering position. So like I if I were to like think of like ways to like structure your day, um I would try to do, I mean, I wouldn't push for it and like burn yourself out, because the most important thing I think in this whole process is like making a sustainable routine and like way of learning stuff. So like an example is like maybe one day you do like one or two leak code easy problems, you do homework, and then um, you like start watching a YouTube video on like how to build a Twitter clone or a Netflix clone. And maybe like eventually through that you get interested in like a Udemy or LinkedIn course. And then each day, I think that kind of like lends itself to a little bit more of a routine. You can do like a lecture each day for each of those courses. And they usually range from like anywhere to 5 to like 20 minutes to a full hour. And then another tip too, I know it's not possible for everyone, but if you're watching videos like that, try and get used to like speeding them up a little bit. Like a lot of video players on the web have like this feature where you can speed it up 1.25 times, 1.5 times. Like if you can try to get used to that, and that really helps like uh, get you through a video quicker. But again, like the emphasis is on learning, so just learn as much as you can within a day, but just don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Thank you so much for the insight.
Of course.
I have a question.
Oh, go for it.
Are there any skills that you wish you had before you started working professionally, just to make the transition from student to professional dev a little bit easier?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Whether they're technical skills or not.
Right. Yeah. No. That's a really good question. Definitely. So like at UCI, I took a couple of like software engineering classes. They were called informatics is the program. And they kind of like explain to you how to write a design doc. But it's always going to be different no matter like what company you go to. So getting used to like writing design docs, doing like just normal administrative stuff is something I wish I had like emphasized, because you can know how to write in English, but it's different like when you're writing a technical document. Getting used to talking in front of people and like communicating your thought process is so, I really would, because I had taken a public speaking class at MVC actually, like my last summer there. And like I said, I'm an anxious person, so like I get nervous talking in front of people, and thankfully like things have been like sort of remote for the past couple of years, and it's a little easier to talk to people like through Zoom and like Google Meet and stuff. But public speaking and like learning how to defend your ideas is something that's really important. Learning how to write. What else? I think like just getting used to changing context in your work. So like switching from like one task to another that are completely different. I guess you can kind of call that multitasking, but yes, I guess like context switching / multitasking is really helpful to know. Something that's nice to have that I really wish like I had learned like just way earlier since I was a kid, which I think like most people can learn, is touch typing. It's I think there's like this idea that you need to be a really fast typer to be a good software engineer, and that's not true at all. There's like a lot of ways to get around that, but I do like mechanical keyboards, and I enjoy typing, and it really would help write code a lot faster if I was better at touch typing. But yeah, that's more like a nice to have, not really like super duper important.
Oh, great, thank you.
What other questions do we have, y'all?
Hey Mario, question. It's Joe. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joe.
Hey, so do you feel that soft skills are something that is pretty important to get you where you were?
Yeah, for sure. Again, like just talking with people is super, just communicating your thoughts, talking to people, and like being able to defend whatever you're saying is super important. I think like in the context of like going to a career fair, something just happened. Oh, it says you stopped. Okay.
So yeah, I just stopped your screen share.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So like in the example of like going to a career fair, like being able to like work out your nerves and like not maybe not be so like scared to like approach someone new is like something that's really important. I wouldn't say like being able to talk well, but like being able to like communicate clearly and concisely, like who you are, what you've done, the skills you have, how you can be useful to like whatever company that you want to apply to, or whoever the hiring person you're talking to at a career fair is super duper important.
Okay, another question then. So how many times do you feel if you were to practice your pitch or whatnot, like what is that rounded number that you would feel like, okay, if I did it like X amount of times, I kind of have it down for like pitching your ideas or whatnot?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of numbers, not really related to what you're asking, keep it like to 1 minute. Make sure you're not like talking super fast. But like in terms of, so like going back to your question about like how many times you should practice it, I would say like as many as it takes. You can like even try it on like a family member or friend and see what they think and get their thoughts. Usually like if you have like a sibling or something, they'll be brutally honest, hopefully. But like a cousin, you can even like ask a classmate or something and like give your elevator pitch to them and just ask for feedback and see where you are with that. I had an elevator pitch that I wrote. There was like a technical writing class at UCI that one of the assignments was to write an elevator pitch, and I wish I would have got that so I could share that with everyone here. But yeah, so like there's templates out there for your elevator pitch that you can lean on too. You don't just have to like come up with it from scratch. There's no shame in using a template. Yeah, like again, I'm saying like all this stuff is super important, but like at the end of the day, if you're missing like one or some of those things, you're not going to be out of a job forever. And I think that's like the most important thing I want to push is like if you don't get an internship, you don't get research, there's going to be something at the end for everyone, as long as you stick with it and you stay consistent, you keep applying, you keep your leak code skills sharp. I didn't mention systems design. That's something that you kind of get asked a little bit about, but you sort of learn that throughout like the process of your own personal projects. But yeah, you want to mention all that sort of stuff in your elevator pitch. Yeah, and sort of like tailor it too, I think, to whatever person you're talking to. So if it's like, if you're talking to a person that works at like a machine learning software as a service company or like cloud service company, you have like machine learning experience, even if it's like minor, talk about that. You probably don't want to mention like your front end web development experience to them unless it's relevant. Yeah, just tailor it as much as you can and like practice it as much as you can and get it down. I think someone put a question in the chat.
Yeah, I was realizing now that Jesse sent it to everyone. He was asking about looking and applying for internships, whether it should happen in community college or once you transfer. I did reply to Jesse and I said that you should do both if you have the time and you're interested, that there are a lot of opportunities available for community college students specifically, and that you don't have to wait until you're at a university to start applying. You can do something in community college, even if it's, you know, there's some really great NASA class type programs like NCAS, which is NASA Community College Aerospace Scholars. There's the Lucy or LSpace programs that are available for students that you just apply for, and they're like classes that you take but with NASA. These are the types of things that you can do while you're at community college to build your experience, so once you get to your university you can start applying to bigger internship and research experiences. But what recommendations do you have as well, Mario?
Yeah, so that I just want to say that's a super good question, because I had this like internal conflict as well. Again, like I started learning how to code like for real my second year at community college. And by that point, like I think I definitely should have been applying that entire year for internships. I learned that like you do a lot of learning on the internship, in the internship itself. A lot of the people that set up internships are expecting you to not know much or have much experience. So learning on the job is a real thing, and just know that that's how it works. It is kind of like a paradox that like you have to apply to an internship when you don't know much, but you have to, in order to get a response for an internship, you need to have experience and know how to code. But like just know like that's it, you know, if you want to stand out, there are ways you can stand out, like through like small guided projects that you can do independently, or even like what I did was like after I finished like a class project, I would like clean it up a little bit and see if I can like deploy it myself so that everyone can use it. That's something that you can do, even if you don't fully understand like every single detail about it. Just like, you know, share what you do know, like in an interview. If you do have that on your resume and you do get an interview for an internship. But specifically, I want to call out. So I've done a bad job of like advertising Google as a place for you to apply to, and that's my fault. But basically, like there's 2 internships you can apply to. I think there's like a general software engineering internship, which is for, I think, like everyone that's in their last 2 years of their 4-year degree, or maybe their transfer degree. And then there's the other internship is a step internship. And I want to like reiterate that I'm kind of like going off like my recent talk with a coworker, because I have a couple coworkers actually on my team that went through the exact same like transfer to university to Google path. And they let me know that there's this internship called the STEP internship, which is for freshmen and sophomore students. It doesn't matter if you're at a 4-year or if you're at a community college, you should definitely apply. And if you do apply, let me know, because I can like, I can't say like it'll be like a surefire way that you get a response back, but I can at least like provide a referral to some degree. I think a couple people put like some questions in the chat. So more of a personal question: were you part of the software engineering club in MVC? That's a good question. So I don't know if there was a software engineering club when I was at MVC. There's definitely like a robotics club, and I think Joe, I don't know what the name of it was, but it was like a 3D printing, like modeling club, where they would like create stuff in like AutoCAD or I forgot the name of the other software. And then you would print it and you'd have like neat little trinkets or tools that you can use at your desk. I know Joe had like a bunch of stuff. I think he had like a Pokemon or like a fist that like held keys or something. I might be just like totally making this up off the top of my head, but yeah, there was that club that I didn't get to do much on, unfortunately, because I was like really focused on school. But yeah, I don't remember if there's a software engineering club at MVC.
That was the software engineering club.
That was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
okay. So
I
I think you were part of it. You said no, but I think you were because so full disclosure, Mario worked for me in my department. So amazing student. I'm so happy that you are where you're at, Mario. Keep going. Stock options, stock options, stock options. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I probably dragged you in for a couple of little projects here and there. So I would still like to claim yes, you were, but your prerogative, sir.
yeah, I'll take the claim to the club. I'll say I was in it for sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt to know stuff like that. I think anything you can get involved with technology is great to know. Just like getting familiar with software, that sort of thing. Like design itself, I think is a good like pathway to have in your brain that helps with other stuff. Graphic design, 3D design, even I mean, yeah, just anything you can get involved with, you should definitely try and learn as much as you can.
Thank you, Mario. I want to be mindful of time. I know we've gone pretty well over here, and I'm sure you've got other things going on in your life. So does anyone have any last questions for Mario? Make sure he seems really open. Make sure to add him on LinkedIn if you want to connect with him a little more about opportunities at Google or other opportunities, questions you may have. But let's get one more question if anyone has one.
Yeah, and I would say like definitely like don't be afraid to ask me literally anything. If you're too nervous to like ask over Zoom, I understand because that's totally me. But yeah, just my email is on the slide deck. My LinkedIn is there. Yeah, just feel free to ask me whatever.
Thank you so much, Mario. I know if y'all don't know, networking is a really important link that you can use to getting anywhere in life, really. Just building your network, finding new opportunities, getting new opportunities. I mean, Mario, you got your job on LinkedIn, so just having yourself out there really made a difference. So it can be daunting, but put yourself out there, give it a chance, and see what comes of it. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Mario, so much for your wealth of information. It's amazing how much you've learned and how much you've grown in just your few years outside of UCI. And we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help and happy to share whatever information I have. I definitely don't want to gatekeep, and I want to help as many people as possible with what I do know.